Sarah Bennett stumbled through the revolving doors of the Blackstone Hotel, grateful to escape the torrential downpour outside. Chicago's skyline was barely visible through the sheets of rain, punctuated by brilliant flashes of lightning. The grand lobby, usually a picture of quiet elegance, was in chaos. Stranded travelers crowded every available space, their voices a cacophony of frustration and worrying. As she approached the front desk, Sarah's designer heels clicked against the polished marble floor, drawing irritated glances from those who had been waiting 4 hours. She felt a twinge of guilt as she bypassed the line, her platinum reward status granting her priority check-in. The clerk, a thin man with salt and pepper hair and dark circles under his eyes, looked ready to collapse. "Reservation for Sarah Bennett," she said, sliding her ID across the counter. The clerk, whose name tag read Edward, nodded wearily. "Yes, Miss Bennett, we have you down for a 4-night stay in one of our executive suites." His fingers flew over the keyboard as he processed her check-in. As Sarah waited, her gaze wandered to the antique key rack behind the desk. Most hooks were empty, but one entire row remained untouched. The brass tags all bore the same number, 13. "That's odd," Sarah mused aloud. "Is the 13th floor completely vacant?" Edward's head snapped up, his tired eyes suddenly alert and wary. "What do you know about the 13th floor?" he demanded, his voice low and trembling. Sarah blinked, taken aback by his intensity. "Nothing," she said quickly. "I just noticed all the keys were still there. Seems strange, with the hotel so full." The clerk's face relaxed slightly, but a nervous tension remained in his shoulders. "Ah, yes, well, some guests are superstitious about the number 13. We don't typically book those rooms unless absolutely necessary." He forced a brittle smile and handed Sarah her keycard. "You'll be in room 1412, Miss Bennett. Enjoy your stay." As Sarah turned to leave, she caught a glimpse of Edward furiously whispering to another staff member, shooting furtive glances in her direction. A chill ran down her spine, and she hurried toward the elevators, pulling her luggage behind her. The wait for an elevator was interminable. When one finally arrived, Sarah found herself crushed against the back wall as too many people crammed into the small space. As they ascended, she noticed something strange about the button panel. There was no button for the 13th floor. "Excuse me," she asked the woman beside her, raising her voice over the hum of conversation. "Isn't it odd there's no button for the 13th floor?" The woman didn't respond. In fact, Sarah realized with growing unease, no one in the elevator acknowledged her question. An eerie silence had fallen over the car, punctuated only by the soft ding as they passed each floor. When the doors opened on the 14th floor, Sarah squeezed her way out, gratefully gulping in air that didn't smell of damp clothes and anxiety. She found her room and collapsed onto the plush king-sized bed, her mind racing. The presentation she was supposed to give tomorrow suddenly seemed trivial compared to the hotel's mysteries. As Sarah drifted off to sleep, a low, mournful sound penetrated the silence. She jolted awake, disoriented in the unfamiliar darkness. The noise was coming from directly below her room, from the supposedly non-existent 13th floor. The moaning grew louder, filled with anguish that made Sarah's hair stand on end. Unable to bear it, she pounded on the floor with her fist. "Hey," she shouted. "Keep it down." Silence fell, heavy and expectant. Then, slowly, the moaning resumed, but now it was deeper, angrier, building to a feverish wail that seemed to vibrate through Sarah's very bones. Heart pounding, Sarah snatched up the hotel phone and dialed the front desk. A woman's voice answered, clipped and professional. "There's a terrible noise coming from the room below me," Sarah explained, trying to keep her voice steady. "It sounds like someone's in pain." There was a long pause before the night manager replied, her tone suddenly terse. "That's impossible, Miss Bennett. There is no 13th floor. You must be mistaken. I'm not crazy." Sarah snapped, her fear giving way to frustration. "I know what I'm hearing. Someone needs to check on whoever's down there." The manager sighed heavily. "I'll send maintenance to investigate. Try to get some sleep, Miss Bennett. You have an early meeting tomorrow, correct?" Sarah hung up, unsettled by the manager's knowledge of her schedule. Sleep, however, proved impossible. The ghostly moans continued, now accompanied by loud, rhythmic banging. It sounded as if someone, or something, was trying to break through the floor. Unable to bear it any longer, Sarah threw on a robe and left her room. She'd go down to the 12th floor herself and confront whoever was making the racket. But when the elevator doors opened, Sarah found herself in a dimly lit corridor that clearly hadn't been used in years. The air was thick with dust, and cobwebs adorned the sconces on the walls. Confused and increasingly frightened, Sarah took the stairs instead. But between the 14th and 12th floors, she discovered something impossible, a hidden door, cleverly disguised to blend with the wall. Heart racing, she pushed it open to reveal the 13th floor. The hallway stretched into darkness, emergency lights flickering weakly. The carpet beneath Sarah's bare feet was worn and musty, nothing like the plush luxury of the upper floors. Her footsteps echoed ominously as she crept forward, checking door numbers. She stopped in front of 1312, directly below her room. Sarah knocked tentatively, straining to hear any sound from within. Silence. She tried the handle, and to her surprise, it turned easily. The room was a mirror image of her own, but shrouded in dust and cobwebs. Sarah's phone flashlight revealed outdated furnishings that looked decades old, a rotary phone on the nightstand, a bulky television that probably still used vacuum tubes. A steady dripping sound drew her attention to the bathroom. Sarah pushed open the door and gasped. The sound strangled in her throat. The clawfoot tub was filled to the brim with dark, stagnant water, and floating in those murky depths was the bloated corpse of a man in an old-fashioned suit, his skin a sickly grey-green. Sarah stumbled backward, choking back a scream. As her light fell across the dead man's face, his eyes snapped open. With inhuman speed, the corpse lunged from the tub. Water cascaded onto the tiled floor as the thing rose, fixating on Sarah with milky, sightless eyes. A gurgling moan escaped its bloated lips as it reached for her with pruned, skeletal fingers. Sarah fled, slamming the door behind her. She raced down the hall, bare feet slipping on the worn carpet as the sounds of wet, slapping footsteps pursued her. She found the hidden door and burst through, taking the stairs two at a time until she reached the brightly lit lobby. "Help!" she cried, her voice hoarse with terror. "There's a body, a dead man. He tried to grab me." The night manager, a severe-looking woman in her 50s, calmly approached Sarah. "Please, Miss Bennett," she said soothingly. "Try to calm yourself. You're not the first to see him." She led Sarah to a back office, gesturing for her to sit. From a weathered file cabinet, she retrieved a manila folder and handed Sarah a yellowed newspaper clipping. She recognized the face immediately. It was the dead man from the tub, but vital and handsome in life. "Harold Winters," the manager explained. "A guest who died here in 1938. He drowned himself after learning his wife and unborn child had perished in a car accident. He's one of our more active residents." Sarah gaped at her. "You're saying I saw a ghost?" That's impossible." The manager, Amanda, according to her name tag, smiled thinly. "Mr. Winters is just one of many spirits that haunt the 13th floor. That's why we've sealed it off." She gestured to the massive file cabinet that dominated one wall of the office. Each of those files represents a death on the 13th floor. Suicides, murders, accidents, always in different rooms, never the same way twice. We've tried exorcisms, blessings, even completely rebuilding that section of the hotel. Nothing works. Sarah felt dizzy, her world tilting on its axis. "This is insane. Why hasn't the hotel been shut down? Surely the authorities. Oh, we've tried, Amanda sighed, cutting her off. But the spirits won't let us. Anyone who attempts to close the Blackstone winds up dead themselves. So we've learned to coexist. We keep guests off the 13th floor, and the ghosts mostly leave us alone. Sarah stood on shaky legs, her mind reeling. I need to leave, now. I'll find another hotel. Amanda's eyes hardened, all pretense of sympathy vanishing. I'm afraid that's not possible, Miss Bennett. You've seen too much. The spirits won't allow you to leave. As if on cue, Sarah heard the wail of sirens approaching outside. Ah, right on schedule, Amanda smiled, the expression never reaching her eyes. A tragic accident, I'm afraid. Young woman fell down the elevator shaft. These things happen in old hotels. Sarah backed away in terror as Amanda advanced, producing an old-fashioned room key from her pocket. Don't worry, she soothed, her voice devoid of warmth. The 13th floor always has vacancies. You'll fit right in with the other ghosts. Panic lending her strength, Sarah shoved past Amanda and burst out of the office. She ran for the main entrance, heedless of the startled guests diving out of her way. But as she approached the revolving door, an invisible force slammed into her, sending her sprawling across the polished floor. Sarah scrambled to her feet, but every exit she tried repelled her. It was as if the very building was conspiring to keep her trapped. In desperation, she ran for the service elevator, hoping to find a way out through the basement or loading dock. As the ancient car creaked and groaned its way downward, Sarah's mind raced. There had to be a way out of this nightmare. She couldn't accept that she was doomed to become another restless spirit, trapped for eternity in this cursed hotel. The elevator shuddered to a stop, but when the door slid open, Sarah found herself not in the basement, but back on the 13th floor. The dim hallway stretched before her, and distant wails and sobs echoed from behind closed doors. No, Sarah whispered, backing into the elevator. No, this isn't real. It can't be. But the elevator doors remained stubbornly open, and a chill wind seemed to beckon her forward. With leaden feet, Sarah stepped into the corridor. As she passed each room, voices called out to her, some pleading, some angry, all filled with a despair that threatened to consume her. At the end of the hall stood Amanda, that same cold smile on her face. Welcome home, Miss Bennett, she said, holding out the key to room 1312. Your room is ready. Sarah's legs gave out, and she collapsed to her knees. Please, she begged, there must be some way to end this, to free all of these souls. Amanda's expression softened slightly. Many have tried, my dear. But the curse that binds this floor is older and more powerful than you can imagine. It feeds on pain, on tragedy. Each new death only makes it stronger. As if to punctuate her words, a chorus of agonized screams erupted from the surrounding rooms. Sarah clapped her hands over her ears, but the sound seemed to penetrate her very soul. Wait, Sarah gasped, a desperate idea forming. You said the curse feeds on tragedy, right? What if ... what if we gave it something else? Something joyful? Amanda's brow furrowed. What do you mean? Sarah struggled to her feet, her mind racing. In all those files, has anyone ever died here while experiencing pure happiness? True love, or ... or the birth of a child? The night manager's eyes widened. No, she whispered. No, I don't believe so. But how? We need to fill this floor with life, Sarah insisted, a manic energy taking hold. With laughter, with love, invite couples on their honeymoon, host children's birthday parties. Flood this place with so much joy that the darkness has nowhere left to hide. Amanda stared at her for a long moment, then slowly nodded. It's crazy, she said. But after all these years, ... it just might work. Over the next months, Sarah worked tirelessly alongside the hotel staff to transform the 13th floor. They renovated the rooms, filling them with bright colors and cheerful decor. They hosted weddings, baby showers, and reunions of long-lost friends. Slowly, the atmosphere began to change. The wails of anguish were replaced by peals of laughter. The oppressive gloom lifted, revealing the floor's hidden beauty. And one by one, the restless spirits found peace. Sarah watched as shimmering forms smiled and waved before fading away, finally free from their torment. On the one-year anniversary of her fateful night, Sarah stood in the corridor of the 13th floor, marveling at the transformation. Children ran past, giggling as they played hide-and-seek. The sound of a champagne cork popping came from one room, followed by a toast to newlyweds. Amanda approached, looking years younger without the weight of the curse on her shoulders. "You did it, Sarah," she said, squeezing the younger woman's hand. "You broke the cycle. The 13th floor is just another part of the hotel now." Sarah smiled, feeling a profound sense of peace. "I'm glad," she said softly, "but I think my work here is done. It's time for me to move on." As Sarah walked toward the elevator, she felt a gentle warmth envelop her. She turned back one last time, seeing the corridor filled with happy guests, oblivious to the miracle they were part of. With a contented sigh, Sarah stepped into the light, leaving behind a legacy of joy or a place that had known only sorrow for far too long. In the lobby, Edward greeted a young couple checking in for their honeymoon. "Welcome to the Blackstone Hotel," he said warmly. "I have a lovely suite for you on the 13th floor. I think you'll find it's our luckiest number,